Hi everyone, it's Suzanne Venker doing my first ever Ask Suzanne video. I told you guys that I would be taking your questions and answering them hopefully once a week. That's my goal using this forum. So we'll see how it goes. I got lots of questions from you all, which I appreciate very much. There is one thing I wanted to note, which is that, like for example, I have this question here from Catherine, and she told me her story, but then she didn't really have a specific question, so I can't really address it without a question. So just make sure that when you guys email askthefeministfixer@gmail.com that you're including with your email a very pointed question that I can answer. Okay, so I'm going to today answer Alyssa's. Alyssa writes, what can we do about a culture that teaches female entitlement? One of my sons had a girlfriend who constantly demanded to be taken for dinner, gifts, etc. I want to warn my sons about getting into a marriage and then being taken to the cleaners if his wife decides she isn't happy. I know you have a daughter and a son. Is your son receiving your messages with open ears? So the answer to that last question is yes, I do have a 16-year-old son who is very receptive to the kinds of everything I write. But that's largely because he's grown up with it, so it's all he knows, and he's very comfortable with those conversations and is used to them, expects it. In fact, if anything, I think my kids would probably like me to talk a little less about these things. But for the average person who's just, a nurse or something, and you're never discussing these, have no occasion to discuss these things, your road's going to be a little bit harder. And I would say that your best bet is that you need to be hyper alert to what he's being told via whether it's in the media, whether it's in the schools, whether it's in the books he's reading, whether it's what he's watching on the internet, any forum whatsoever where he's being told, where he's absorbing this girl power message. You need to be right there ready to intercept that by telling him what's wrong with that, and what he thinks of it, to just in some way engage him. And if your opinion or information is different from what he's absorbing, it is your job to straighten him out. He has to hear the other side. There's nowhere else he's going to hear it except for his parents. Nowhere. So it's up to us in the end to be that force for good, against what the culture's teaching him. So I would say, I know it's hard with boys because, they're not big talkers, and, they might say, yeah. And you almost have to force the situation a little bit, I think, with boys, because they probably won't want to hear it. I think the older they get and the more they're interested in girls, the more they'll perk up. And they can tell the difference between a girl who has some substance, shall we say, from sort of the flighty girl who's really into herself. I don't think a really good guy is going to be too interested in that second girl, except that, well, I should say an older guy wouldn't, but if the younger they are, they could get caught up in that. So, especially if he has a girlfriend like that, you have to interject there and let him know in a gentle way that it is not okay, or that it is okay, I should say, if you're dealing with a girl who's very demanding, for you to say no. I think this is a really big issue because it's not natural for boys to say no to girls, and it's almost frowned upon. They get the upper hand there. But you have to be willing to talk about, the downside of being a female, if you will, as much as you are the downside of being a male, or just human behavior. In other words, just approaching human behavior and not worrying whether it's a girl or a boy that you're talking about if it's of a negative nature. Because I think a lot of people are very quick to talk negatively about boys and men, but not women and girls, because you're not supposed to do that. But, and that can be hard when they're really involved with a girl that they like. But you only have them for so long. Once they're 18 and out of the house, you pretty much have lost your, well, you've certainly lost that one-on-one daily ability and space to teach them what you know to be true. And I, for one, believe and believed very much in utilizing that time as much as I possibly could before they leave. Like I said, sometimes too much, but I'm glad I did. So yeah, that's my best advice to you, is to be on hyper alert, and to, every time you see it, use that opportunity to engage your son and tell him the truth. And of course, you can always show him my articles. He won't, I don't think the boys will read books, but you can show him a quick article of mine, because I, cover all this stuff, and it's stuff that they're not going to see anywhere else. So there's always that option. Okay, till next time. Thanks, guys.